Hello, love. Welcome back. My name is Jennifer Laurel Keller, and today I'm giving a quick acrylic painting lesson where I show you how to create a study of loosely painted red roses. Roses are a classic flower that you can paint by themselves or use to add beautiful embellishments to your other subjects. You can watch this video to simply relax and be inspired, or you can watch it twice, once to see what happens and again to paint along with me. Just hit pause as needed to take things step by step because I move the video along fairly quickly. Donations are appreciated if you find this video helpful either emotionally or technically, and you're able, I will have more information about that down below. I also have a free gift for you at the end, so stay tuned for that. All right, let's begin. All right, so you can choose to do this on watercolor or mixed media paper. I'm going to choose watercolor paper, so I'm going to rip out a sheet. I also have synthetic bristle brushes, water, I have a painting rag handy, a glass palette, and a wide flat brush ready to go for my background. And I have my acrylic paints. Next, I'm going to take some artist tape, or you can use blue painter's tape, and adhere the page down to the table. And next, I'm going to paint my background with a little tiny bit of color and a lot of white so that it's nice and light. What I don't want you to do is go in one direction. So what I recommend is pivoting your hand so that your brush strokes are coming in from all directions. And that's going to give your background more of a seamless look, and it'll be nice and airy, and you can let your colors overlap each other and just kind of mix up on the page. You can do this with as much contrast or as little contrast as you want. And I like using the cool colors because it's going to make the warmth of the red rose pop when it's next to that. And then I'm going to pop my brush in the water and pick out a smaller flat brush. This is a medium size, I'd say. And we're going to start with some stems and leaves. So I've got the Paynes Grey. I'm loading the brush and taking any extra paint and putting it back on the palette. And then I'm just going to do a nice smooth line using the narrow side of the brush and then come back to make the leaf. And loading up the brush again, I'm going to define the tip of the leaf a little bit more, make a better point on that, and then come down and make another one, just a little teardrop shape there. These are really simple leaves, and I use the shape a lot. And they don't come out of the stem at a 90-degree angle so much. It's kind of angled. So here's another fluid line, and then filling in that leaf shape. And you don't have to make these perfect. I love using the blue because it just adds an extra color. That's a little bit more interesting than just a dark shadow that's like a dark green. It's kind of an unexpected color. So there are two stems, and I'll have the rose right in the middle, overlapping those a bit. And then I'll do some more up top. So here's another one. I'm not going to do a stem on that leaf, just one leaf. That'll be a smaller study. And then up here, I'm going to do a couple leaves that are going to peek out of another rose. So this blue is my shadow color, and I'm going to come over the top with the green of the leaf. So I'm just going in with that Chromium Oxide green, layering over and letting a bit of that blue show through, and I sped that up a little bit. And it also takes away the transparency of the brush strokes from the blue layer. Now I'm mixing in more white and going over the top of that to indicate some light hitting those leaves, and I'm letting some of those bottom layers of color show through. And once more with one extra layer of a lighter green, getting pretty light here, going over the top, letting the other colors show through. Now I have a small round brush, and I added some red to my palette. Now we're going to do a rose, and it's going to be a straight on look from the front. So the perspective is going to be from the front, and I'm doing kind of the spiral shape for the center. And then as we move outwards, I'm adding little crescent line shapes around and round, overlapping, starting back a little bit further and then coming out. And it doesn't matter exactly where they are. You'll see this over and over again with roses. It's not perfect. It's not a perfect pattern. It's a little bit loose. And as we move out further, the petals are going to be more pronounced. So I'm just making sure to keep my brush loaded. It's a light touch. The more pressure you put on your brush, the thicker the lines are going to be. So if you're just painting from the end of the brush, you're going to have nice thin lines. And if you push down with more pressure, it's going to be a thicker line because the bristles spread out. And you'll also notice that I'm overlapping those leaves because they're coming out from behind the rose. And let's do one or two more. And that looks pretty good. So next, I'm going to show you a 3/4 perspective. And I'm starting with the spiral in the middle of the rose, and it's squished, it's foreshortened. So it's thinner, it's not as wide, but it is pretty tall. It's the height of the rose, but because it's pivoted away from you and you're only seeing it from a 3/4 perspective, it's going to be thinner. Everything's going to be squished together. And my line mark here is a little bit more wavy, you'll see. I wanted to show you that. And out from behind, just kind of bringing in more petals. And then we're going to do a profile perspective or a side perspective. This one's pretty simple. It's kind of like a little bud that's starting to open. Okay, let's fill this in. I've got red on my brush, and I'm just bringing it in to fill in the part of the rose that's going to be red. And on the outer petals, I'm filling in the red closer to the inside of the petal and leaving the outside blank because that's where the highlight's going to be. Same over here, just loosely filling in most of those areas. And now we're going to add white to a little tiny bit of red to make a kind of like a bubblegum pink, a medium pink. And I'm filling in the gaps that I left open, and that's indicating where the light is hitting those petals. And it's usually on the outside of the petal. More light is going to hit the outside. And then I added some darker pink to soften up the gaps between so the transition is softer. Now I have some lighter pink, lighter than what I started with, and I'm just popping it in for the highlights at the very ends of the petals where the most light is hitting the flower. And then I'm going to do it over here. I have a dark pink going on both of those small ones, and then I'll bring in more white for more light. And again over on that side view, and then lighter still for the highlights. And each time I'm letting the color show through from the previous one. And then finally you can go back for some touch-ups with whatever pink. Here I'm going to add some green to the flower and pink to the leaves. It might seem kind of counterintuitive, but light and color bounce around. So I'm just adding some green to the shadows of the roses. And red and green are opposite colors on the color wheel, so they make each other pop. And then here I'm adding just a small amount, like one brush stroke of pink to those leaves. I had some extra room, so I'm going to do one more rose off to the left, and I hit it with a hair dryer just to speed up the drying time to make the layering a little bit easier. And now I'm going over with straight green right out of the tube, letting some of the blue show through, adding some white to the green to give it more contour and definition. And next I'm going to draw in a 3/4 perspective rose, but a little bit bigger than the one I did before, going in the other direction with some wavy leaves. And I see more of the side of it, so that side is larger. Okay, drying that off so that I can add my red now, just popping that in to each petal. You could fill in the whole thing with red and then go over the top with pink, or you can leave some of the background exposed with the red and then come over and fill that in, and it's all good. Okay, now adding white to make a dark pink, popping that in. I'm using a really tiny flat brush at this point, but it felt a little big, so you'll see I switch it up in a moment. And putting in some highlights, some mid-tones really, and it's getting lighter and lighter on each petal towards the outer edge of each petal. More white now, getting those highlights built up. And then finally I switch over to the small round brush and I make my lightest pink. And this is where the most light is going to hit those petals. And it's really quick, it's really loose. I'm not paying too much attention to blending, more so to layering here, and it keeps things just loose and more expressive. And then I'm going to do some touch-ups. I had some messy bits of blue, so I'm just going to clean up anything with whatever red or pink it needs. Now I'm going to pop in the green like I did before to make the red pop with that opposite color from the color wheel. Red and green are opposites. And some pink for the leaves. And it just brings the whole thing together. And as a final touch, I'm going to bring in some white. There's only white on my brush, but it's not perfectly opaque. Some of the red and pink shows through. And this is going to give it that extra little glint of light where it's hitting the flower, giving it form, and a little bit on each leaf, just a brush stroke or two on each leaf, and we're done. I hope you enjoyed this process. Thank you for watching. I had a lot of fun with this study, and I encourage you to try it out. If you found this valuable, you might like to leave a donation to show your appreciation. I usually teach in the classroom with a registration fee, but right now I'm just having a good time making these tutorials more accessible. So if you can, it would help so much to be compensated for my work through the donations. If you can't donate today, you can still help by liking, subscribing, and sharing this video on your social media to help me spread the love. I do have another free gift for you. It's my free online creative care package, which includes more painting videos, art foundation techniques, art supply recommendations, free art business resources, and a discount code for my original artwork and classes. It's a big value, all for free, and it's linked below as well. Doing a study is a fun, low-pressure way to practice, so no matter where you are in your art journey, the most important thing is to show up and get started with an open mind. Practice and you will learn something new every time. Happy painting, much love.